It's an absolutely wild day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Post Malone has just purchased the 1/1 serialized Lord of the Rings ring. On top of that, Wizards of the Coast is making big changes when it comes to legendary creature design. And if that wasn't enough, Wall Street has come out of nowhere and they've actually upgraded Hasbro's financial rating. And yes, I did just wear these to do that dramatic reveal.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a hat-wearing installment of Mega Magic News. And this sweet newsberry is full of the juicy goodness. Things are wild in a number of different directions. Obviously, the One Ring situation with Post Malone has been blowing up the internet for the last, I'd say 16 hours or so. Maybe it's reaching into 24 hours now. But regardless, if you haven't already heard, Post Malone was the end buyer for the 1/1 ring. And you can see people running all over Reddit going, I said this was gonna happen. I said this was gonna happen. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And I mean, it's a logical course of action for people's brains to follow. If you think about it, when you go, how many people are there out there who can even afford to make this purchase? Then you factor in the whole, hey, everybody knows Post Malone loves Magic. He literally had a card dedicated to him and then a full-on secret lair dedicated to him, which there are some hilarious jokes floating around right now because of this situation as well. Somebody said, yo, Wizards actually made the Post Malone secret lair specifically to sell to Post Malone and to see if in this new era where all products are designed for Post Malone, if other people will also buy them, right? So that is a pretty amusing little thing to say. But the idea that people had was, yo, if I get this card, how cool would it be to make some millions of dollars and also meet somebody I'm a big fan of? Well, somebody got to actually live this dream life and be the Julia Roberts pretty woman meeting Post Malone. There's TikTok footage of it out there if you want to go and see the real deal. And Buddy looks like he is about to start crying out of pure joy, right? Like, this is a sweet setup. Post Malone is a really chill seeming dude. Anytime I've seen him anywhere, he just always has this mega nice vibe to him. He just seems like he's a good dude, right? So getting to hang out with him, meet him, hook him up with this magic card. This is somebody who is not only like mega famous, but is into the same thing you're into. He's a super fan, and at the same time, it's transforming your life, right? Now, when it comes to the actual selling price, there's nebulous information flowing around. So we know that initially there were offers of $1 million being made for this one ring. We saw that as like the base level. And then we saw up to $2 million, but we're talking different kind of currencies and things like that. So it wasn't sure exactly how that converts into American dollars, right? Now, the amount hasn't actually technically been disclosed as far as I can see, but there are a bunch of people stating that it was $2 million, that it was $2.6 million, but we don't have confirmation from either the person selling the card or Post Malone on that. So it's purely speculative. But to add to the enjoyment, friends, if you didn't know, we're talking American dollars. This guy who sold the card, he's from the same place I am, Canada. And guess what? American money is worth a lot more than Canadian money. A lot more. So we're talking like a 25% cash bonus for real. So if this guy did sell it for $2 million in Canadian fun bucks, our colorful money, that's more like $2.5 million. Have an extra like $500,000 just for selling this from the exchange rate. It's such a crazy amount of money, but I love this story from start to finish. It's literally what you would want to see. It's not a scenario where you have one of the big stores that sells cards and they've just churned through a bunch of packs and it's like big brand X got the special card and we're selling it on. It's way more satisfying to have an everyday Joe get this card and then get to meet Post Malone and get a life-changing amount of money. And from Wizards' perspective, this worked out incredibly, right? Like, they created this promotion, they essentially they printed money. They printed a card worth millions of dollars that actually got sold to an end user within a short period of time. From the start of the promotion to it ending up in Post Malone's hands, it's only been a whirlwind couple of weeks overall. And this is amazing for Magic the Gathering in that I was before saying, yo, what can they do as a 1 out of 1 that will generate this level of hype? Well, as long as they find something sufficiently exciting, now other people are going to view 1 out of 1s as, wait a minute, I don't care about this property, but if I get this card, I can sell it to a celebrity and get rich. So it's like, meet a celebrity you like, plus get rich. It might just turn into meet Post Malone. Just Post Malone by every 1 out of 1. I mean, we have, who is it as well? Cassius Marsh, the football player, who also is coming in with big offers. He was the one, if I'm not mistaken, who put the $1 million offer on the table. But the One Ring situation has wrapped itself up entirely in a way that is very, very beneficial for Wizards going forwards in terms of running promotions like this. The Lord of the Rings set has massively paid off for Wizards of the Coast. There are very few downsides to it. You do have some people who are unhappy about a number of different aspects, but the majority of the customers seem to be all right with the product. And then you have, on top of that, it drew in a bunch of people from outside of Magic, big streamers going, yo, I'm just going to chase that lottery vibe. So this was a massive success. Now let's talk about something that's not going quite as successfully for Wizards and is going to engender a fundamental design change. This is the legendary rule, well, not rule, it's not really a rules change, it's a design philosophy change. So going forwards, they're going to be pulling back on legendaries in particular cases. So you may have noticed over the last number of years, Wizards of the Coast has declared Magic is essentially Commander the Commandering. And Commander is all about legendary creatures. If you've been wondering, yo, why did Wizards abruptly despark the Planeswalkers? Why did they slap that onto the whole Phyrexian invasion, right? That feels like something that should be made into a much bigger event. You're going, okay, you've got this huge multiverse spanning war. All of this is going on, and that's enough for a huge story. The rise and fall of the Phyrexians is way more than enough. But at the end, you're just going to tack on this stuff about how Elspeth, I don't know, she did something to the blind attorneys with the Silex. She doesn't remember. We don't remember. Whatever. Sarah gave her a hug, and now a bunch of people lost their Planeswalker Sparks. And also, Nahiri put her Planeswalker Spark into a Hedron, and then oops, he dropped it and broke it. And you're just going, wait, why did they do this? Well, the reason they did that is because they want to just go, yo. Forget Planeswalkers. You may have noticed in the last video I talked about how they're going down to like 1 Planeswalker a set. Well, that's because they want to lean more into the legendary situation. So before they really keyed into let's pull down these Planeswalkers to legendary level, they were just throwing tons and tons of legendaries at us, like crazy amounts. You could see cycles of like 10 different legendaries just in the uncommon slots across all 10 color pairs. And while it's fun to get legendary creatures because it denotes special people of higher level abilities or, you know, central characters, whatever it is, there's a problem where they all just start to feel samey, blandish, and at the same time, Wizards is way too laser focused on Commander. So like, Commander legendary, 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 legendary. And that doesn't play well for formats like Standard and everything else, right? So this crazy Commander focus has made them go, all right. We put too much legendary nonsense in. We need to step it back. So going forwards, and understand that when we get this information, it's from Mark Rosewater, and sometimes it can take up to 2 years for the information that we're getting to be actually reflected in the card design we're seeing. But going forwards, they're going to pull back on the number of legendary characters that they're creating. We won't get as many Legends cards in our sets. There is one big exception to that, and that is Universes Beyond. Universes Beyond is still very, very much going to lean into the legendaries. They didn't mention the fact that they want Commander players to be chasing after it, but that's one big part of it. The other big part of it is it's natural. It makes perfect sense. If you're going into any property outside of Magic the Gathering, you need to represent the big characters from it. Imagine they did Lord of the Rings and they're like, well, you know what? We don't have room for Gandalf because we ran out of legendary space. And you'd be like, there's no Gandalf, or you just made Gandalf and he's not legendary? Like, that would feel pretty jarring. So overall, that shift does make sense to me. And I feel like they should have done this earlier overall in terms of pulling back on the legendary stuff. Because this Commander the Commandering, it's reached a saturation level where you can see the detrimental effects, right? Standard itself has languished to the point where Wizards went, yo, we got a lot of Standard product we need to sell. How are we going to move this? And someone's like, fix Standard. And like, we can't. We hosed it. And it's hosed for years. Then add 50% time to how long the cards are good for so we have a longer shelf life to sell it to people. And they were like, you know what? That'll work. Okay, let's roll with that. So this Commander stuff is echoing through the game in a number of different ways. And honestly, I don't really see it shifting anytime soon because Wizards sees it as their biggest customer base. They've already messed up Standard, and they're intentionally rotating all the non-rotating formats. They're creating the Modern Horizon sets, and apparently, I have no idea if this is true, but I've heard there's another Modern Horizons 2 printing that's coming at the end of the year. Wizards has overprinted a bunch of this stuff, but at the same time, this is where you get all the singles that affect formats now. If you look, I mean, at a cursory glance, if you're somebody who's really into the formats, then maybe technically I'm wrong, but from the surface, it really does look like almost all the cards that matter in Magic now, even when you're playing stuff like Modern, whatever, it all comes from the last couple of years. It's all from new juiced up sets. Wizards just cranked the knobs. So they're juicing into all these different environments and also hitting the Commander stuff as hard as they can. So they're pulling back and making those tweaks, and hopefully that will lead to a better situation in the future. And speaking of a better situation in the future, that is how Wall Street feels about Hasbro right now. And I have mixed feelings about this. Ultimately, on one hand, I want Hasbro to not be struggling as a company, because the more Hasbro struggles, the more they have to lean on Wizards of the Coast. And by that I mean, about 5 years ago, the bottom fell out of the toy market. Hasbro's a big toy company, and kids just aren't interested in toys the same way. Little plastic giraffes and stuff, people aren't buying that stuff for their kids the same way anymore. Now they're putting tablets and stuff like that in their kids' hands, so the kids aren't going, I want all the new giraffe toys, Daddy! So Hasbro's going, okay, man, Toys R Us, all these things are collapsing. We're losing all our money. We need the money to come in. So more and more they've been leaning on Magic. So when Hasbro's doing healthier, then maybe they don't need to like just have Magic in the same kind of headlock. Because while I'm angry at Wizards of the Coast, I also feel bad for them. They have to keep kicking money up the chain to Hasbro. They have no choice in the matter. And Hasbro's just trying to limp through life and make it. Well, that's how it was seeming. Now, multiple different companies that work on Wall Street, I don't know all of them. There's Bank of America and some other names. I think there might have been up to a dozen different groups. And they give out these different ratings to companies based on how they think their financial future is going to perform. And you need to remember as well that this rating is based on how much money is going to be paid to shareholders. So this is a rating that's for investors to determine, yo, do I want to get in on this company or not? It's not a measure of the health of things like Magic the Gathering or the products the company is making. You can theoretically assume that if sales are booming, that the company is healthy and the product that it's making is useful and sustainable, whatever it is, right? That those would be good indicators. But Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, they do these sort of manipulative things to make the numbers work, right? Remember when they announced, yo, we're facing like 150 million shortfall, but don't worry, we're firing 15% of our staff and we figure that'll balance it out. Now it's like, so how does that make your company better? You're just getting rid of 15%? Is it actually 15% that's dead weight that doesn't work well? Or are you just going, oh, hack off one of our arms. Oh, check it out. I can jump higher now because I weigh less. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a scenario. So bear in mind that while this is an upgraded rating, and it seems like a number of them are giving it a decent upgraded rating. There's 3 different conditions in the stock market as far as I understand. There's sell, which means get out of it. This thing is falling apart. There's There's hold, which is stay in the marriage to see if it can be saved. And then there's buy, which is yo, these guys are doing something right. Get you some money. You can buy money now. So they're going to do a dividend payout or whatever it is. Get in on it. So that is right now how Hasbro is being graded. They originally, over the course of I think the last year or so, their stock price has halved. They were sitting up at like 80 bones at one point. They cratered down to 40. And now these different analysts are projecting anywhere from 60 to 80 bucks for the stock price. And a bunch of institutional investors are buying into Hasbro stocks. When it comes down to it, now I didn't know this, apparently about 80% of Hasbro's investors are institutional investors. So these are organizations that buy up large chunks of stock. Now, honestly, I don't know how people like Alpha Investments, Rudy falls into that, because I know he's got like thousands and thousands of shares, but he's also a dude. But he's also like a big rich dude who has a ton of magic and whatever. So I don't know if he's in the other 20%. I mean, this financial stuff is kind of wild to me, some of the language they use. But I am very interested in how the markets view the health of Hasbro and Magic the Gathering specifically, because that's always what comes up. Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering are inextricably tied to Hasbro at this point. They've been made into a division. So that's a big deal. So as far as I look at it right now, what's going on is they're getting an upgraded rating because Lord of the Rings did like gangbusters. It sold crazy good, and so for this moment it looks like Wizards is making the right moves, but that's because the analysts don't understand things like Commander Masters and what a terrible product this is. So it remains to be seen whether it's just a tiny little blip on the radar and we're right back down to downgrade territory 3 months from now. But it definitely is interesting to note that Hasbro is no longer getting dropped from the top rope by Wall Street. At the same time though, they're coming for our money to hand to those investors. So keep that in mind, my friends. Now tonight, we're going to be doing a fun Stump the Historian stream, where in the live stream, you can name any card you want from Alpha, Beta, or Unlimited, which are all the same thing, essentially. And I'll tell you what they do. I'll tell you about the artwork. We're going to do all of it. We're going to see if you can stump me, and we're going to start at Alpha and work our way through Magic's history. So if you'd like to come and have a fun, magical time, that's all it's going to be about over there. Head on over. I'll be there tonight. Don't bring your kids. The language ain't for them. Big shout out to my patrons. Thanks for supporting my channel. You guys rule. I'll see you in tonight's stream or in the next video.